Welcome back, everybody. Welcome, move in closer. Yes, hello there. I'll be your guide today for your tour of the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum as portrayed in The Division 2. First, a few ground rules before we get into the museum. Food and drink are allowed only in designated areas. We do welcome photographs, flash photography, all that sort of thing. Feel free to share all of that on social media, of course. However, we do request that you put your phones into silent mode so the ringing doesn't disturb anybody or notify the enemy of our position. I should mention that I'm a pilot, a former air traffic controller, and I've been volunteering here at the museum for around 3 years. Okay, well, as you can see here, the front door is barricaded, so we're actually going to go in through the side. Any questions right now? Okay, let's get going. If you happen to notice any armed ruffians, let's just try and get past them. I apologize for any wildlife we may see here. It's been an interesting time here in Washington. I gotta say, it's excellent that we've been able to get some tourism back into the community here. As a docent at the Air and Space Museum, this is really what I live for. Oh, what a good puppy. I don't blame him for running from that explosion. That was loud. Unfortunately, I may need to take care of this before we can go where we need to. So everybody, if you could just wait right here, I'll take care of this. Alrighty, you can follow me right in through this side gate here. Oh, no, we're good. Okay, and if you look to the right here, you can start to get an idea of just some of the aircraft that we have. Now, what this is the wing of a miniature model C-130. Now, obviously, it's a miniature, it's just a model, and we do have real aircraft inside, so don't worry about that. But you can really tell the production quality of the model here. Now, unfortunately, the model makers got the engines a little bit too close to each other, and if that outboard engine had a propeller on it, the propellers would be hitting. But it was just a model for display purposes only, so, it's not that big of a deal. While we're out here, we have the opportunity to get a really good look at an aircraft we're going to see several times in the museum. Here we have what I like to call the non-infringing World War II fighter. This has characteristics and traits of several aircraft, but manages not to quite look like any of them. Any museum staff out there can attest that the royalties on using something that's easily identifiable are just ridiculous. Okay, go ahead and follow me. By the way, watch your step with the debris and whatnot on the ground. I hope you're all wearing steel-toed, good working boots. It's just the reality of what's going on in DC today. Okay, and as any good tour begins, we're going to enter through the basement garage. Let me lift this for you here 1 second. We got some people in the museum who don't appreciate that we give tours. Just give me a quick moment here to get our clearance to go give the tour, and I'll get right back to you. Okay, let's go see some airplanes. So where's everybody from? And also a reminder as we enter here about just simply don't touch the glass on any of the exhibits, please. This area of the museum we call America by Air. We'll discuss a bit more of what we've got here with each one, but take a few moments here just to kind of walk around, take a look at everything. Just ignore that. And I'll meet you over by the lower cockpit there when you're ready, and we'll continue the tour. Okay, excellent. Now, what we have here is the nose section to a Douglas DC-7. This was a 4-engine propeller aircraft. Now, this particular aircraft was from 1956, and all total, there were only 338 of these made. This, the DC-7, was an evolution of the DC-6. Now, I had the tremendously good fortune to fly a DC-6 through Ha Long Bay, Vietnam. And aside from being one of the most beautiful flights I've ever done, the aircraft itself was simply a joy to fly. Given that the DC-7 was an improvement upon the DC-6, I'm sure that these were a joy to fly as well. This aircraft was particularly well known for its speed. When it was developed, this was one of the fastest cargo and passenger carrying aircraft ever. It would cruise right around 360 miles per hour, about 580 kilometers per hour. But when we think about the DC-7, it's really important to think about where that aircraft came from. And if you've noticed up above us here, we actually have a DC-3, the grandfather to the DC-7 for all intents and purposes. Here, let's go up onto these stairs so we can get a better look at that. The Douglas DC-3 you see hanging here is a civilian version of one of the aircraft that was absolutely essential to winning World War II for the Allies. The C-47 Skytrain, the military version of this particular aircraft, played a tremendous role in troop transportation, glider towing, and general logistics in all theaters of the war. There were even versions of this aircraft used in Korea and Vietnam that had side-mounted miniguns that were able to provide meaningful fire support to troops on the ground. Furthermore, there are even DC-3s still flying cargo today. Simply an incredible machine. If you ever get the opportunity to ride in one of these, definitely do so. Okay, now you can see that our path is actually blocked up there, but in this door, if you happen to come back in the future, you have, like, the history of aviation at sea. There's a Dauntless in there, there's an A4. It's a really great exhibit. Be sure to come back for that one in the future. And down here, we have our first look at UAVs. This particular drone, I have to admit my own ignorance. I'm failing you as a docent today, but I'm not familiar with this exact model. Looks like some sort of combination between an MQ-9 Reaper and, I don't know, like a RQ-4 Global Hawk. Like, it's got elements of both. So I'm just not sure. Either way, there's a large portion of people who feel that unmanned aerial vehicles and drones and whatnot are the way of the future, even for air combat or just even possibly commercial aviation. I mean, at this point, there's a discussion about going to single pilot operations at the commercial level. So, you know, where there may have previously been two people flying that DC-7, you know, 70 years ago, that there may only be one person flying a Boeing 757 these days. It'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. But undoubtedly, as we've seen with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, unmanned aerial vehicles and use of drones, even just for munition delivery, is really kind of the way of the future. Pretty interesting stuff. Okay, we'll move on. Sorry about that. Now, on our way back down the stairs here, I'll point out our Boeing 747 nose section. And we are able to walk into it up from that gantry, although it's currently blocked by another aircraft. Now, the Boeing 747 has been in commercial use since 1968. It's got 4 large engines. You can see some comparisons of the size of those just to its, well, to the right of it from our perspective. And it serves as the backbone of many long-haul passenger and cargo routes. Unfortunately, the last new 747 was delivered in 2022. While these aircraft will continue to fly, no new production is planned. As we move on here, I want to acknowledge it says Air Force gone or Air Farce gone, whatever the case may be. Unfortunately, Air Force One crashed in this game world just outside of Congress. I've done a little bit of moonlighting as an aircraft accident investigator. I may take a look at that at some point in the future and just kind of see what we think brought it down. The final aircraft for discussion in this room is a slightly modified A-10 Thunderbolt II. As you can see, the gun has been removed, even if maintenance did allow a little bit of burnt graffiti on there. Can't blame them for that one. It doesn't have quite as many weapon mounts as the A-10 normally does, and frankly, its proportions are just a little bit wrong, but by golly, that is a good-looking aircraft. Plus, given the KC designation on the tail, I have to assume that this particular aircraft is from one of the A-10 units stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base in Knob Noster, Missouri. Don't ever say Missouri. Someone from there will get very upset with you. It's Missouri. And, interestingly, last I knew, all of the A-10 squadrons out of Whiteman were technically called fighter squadrons. The 303rd Fighter Squadron and the 358th Fighter Squadron in particular. So anybody who wants to argue that the A-10 isn't a fighter, you know, just have a look at the official military nomenclature. I don't make up the rules. Now, I apologize, I don't remember which unit it was, but I feel like one of these A-10 units had the motto of when deterrence fails, attack. Sounds like an A-10 pilot to me. I like it. Okay, let's continue. Let's see. Okay, at this point, we're moving into the planetarium. This is the Einstein Planetarium. You know, planetariums like this are hugely important in helping people understand the size and space of the universe, the distance between the planets, just the galaxy as a whole. It's really quite incredible. But there are even cell phone apps that help with this these days. It's really quite easy to find a free app where you can download and identify celestial bodies just by pointing your phone at them. By the way, if you do enjoy stargazing and that sort of thing, be sure to do it out in the middle of nowhere sometime. The amount of stars that you can see in the city or near a city or anything like that, much, much smaller than what you see when you're out in the middle of nowhere. Be sure to do it if you like that sort of thing. Now we're moving into the Boeing Milestones of Flight area. And as you can see by... Holy sh... What the heck was that? Was that you, sir? Sir, did you touch the exhibit? Was it you? You touched an exhibit? That's it. I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen. My degree in history and my minor in museum curation did not prepare me for how many lives I would have to take as a museum volunteer. But you know, it's just like the British say. History doesn't just happen. You gotta go take it. This is ridiculous. There's more of you? Get your hands off the exhibit. Hands off the exhibit. That's it. Okay, so what we've got here is Amelia Earhart's Lockheed 5B Vega. She flew this particular aircraft solo across the Atlantic in 1932. That made her only the second person to fly solo across the Atlantic and the first woman. The only other person who had done it before her at all was Charles Lindbergh. Total flight time for her to get across the Atlantic? A mere 15 hours. Not long after that flight, she managed to take this same aircraft nonstop solo across the entire United States. All total, there were 132 of these aircraft built beginning in 1928. I think maintenance may be playing a bit of a prank on us here because I'm pretty confident that the registration numbers on Amelia Earhart's were just a little bit different, and hers was red, if I recall correctly. But nonetheless, this is definitely what they were going for here. Now, as I was trying to say before we were so rudely interrupted by those hideously unkind guests, we actually brought in the Space Shuttle Discovery from our remote location over in Chantilly, Virginia. We wanted to bring it in to really help promote some tourism here. I mean, DC is not doing well, but we still have amazing tourist attractions, and so we brought it here and it promptly got broken. I don't think the museum curator is going to be happy about that, but you all saw it. It wasn't my fault. I protected it when I needed to. Make sure you mention that in the review if you do happen to get one. Survey feedback is always appreciated. Okay, the Space Shuttle Discovery. All total, this particular space shuttle flew 39 times between 1981 and 2011, and is particularly well known for having been the first space shuttle with docking missions to Mir and to the International Space Station. Pretty darn cool. From up here, you can see Spaceship One. This aircraft, built by Scaled Composites, is a rocket-powered craft that's launched from a mothership, and this was one of the kind of first commercially built aircraft that proved that there may end up being a commercial and perhaps even a tourism market for space travel. In 2004, this aircraft reached an altitude of 112 kilometers, or about 70 miles. And for anybody who thinks of altitude in terms of feet, like you would fly in an airplane here in the United States, that's about 367,454 feet. So about 10 times higher than a standard commercial flight. It's pretty interesting to see how much aviation is beginning to evolve into space travel. Personally, I would much rather stay within the atmosphere, but you know, it is what it is. Please do not touch the exhibits. Okay, sorry about that. Here we have a number of lunar rovers and small lunar landers generally. I have to admit that being a pilot and a former air traffic controller, I don't have a tremendous amount of knowledge on these. I'm sure that if they had any other volunteers for the museum at this point, they would probably fire me for telling you that. So when you do fill out the review, be sure to mention that you were pleased, and if you could leave out that I admitted to not knowing things, that would be really important. They don't want people saying that during the guided tours. But I feel like I recognize this thing. Moving on. Okay, so now we're entering the space race portion of the museum. And if anybody can recognize what we have there standing up just based on its paint, then you win an award for today. Yep, you got it. It's a V2 single-stage ballistic missile. These were used by the Germans during World War II, and these were truly revolutionary in not only weaponry, but also in kind of jump-starting the space race, particularly with the USSR and the United States. Werner von Braun was kind of the lead engineer on many of the German rockets, and his know-how and the technologies that he was able to develop undoubtedly contributed greatly to space travel, but unfortunately also to the advancement of war. Always kind of tough. By the way, did you know that the world's second largest Oktoberfest takes place in Brazil? Yeah, kind of interesting. Okay, we'll stop here for a brief restroom break if anybody needs one. Great, let's continue. You can follow me this way. We'll head downstairs. This little pit right here is commonly referred to as the missile pit. Looking at a variety of different missiles and space technology, rockets, that sort of thing. Okay, now interestingly, it looks like some of these rockets have been getting taken apart. That's just a little bit concerning, obviously. As a historian here, I can't help but be somewhat appalled when history is being taken apart. So it is what it is. We'll see what's happening here. Yes, and here you can see the homemade missile or rocket that the crew has been working on. We're just gonna go ahead and shut that off. That was whoops, whoopsie. Not supposed to be part of the tour, I don't think. Well, our tour is drawing to a close here, but I did want to point out that if you choose to stay, obviously stay as long as you want, food and drinks, snacks, all that sort of thing are available. We do have maps in the area that are very well rendered for what we have in here. You can even see the multiple of the drone aircraft. This is really quite impressive. Okay, here we have yet another of the museum's most unique artifacts. This is the Apollo Lunar Module number 2. This was designed to take 2 astronauts from lunar orbit down to the moon's surface and then return them to the lunar orbit module. The lunar module here consists of a pressurized crew compartment on the top that also has an ascent rocket engine, and then a lower stage, kind of the gold and below, that consists of its landing pedestals, its landing feet, if you will, a descent stage rocket, and the experiments that are meant to be done on the lunar surface. Ultimately, what happens then is when the astronauts are ready to return, the top half would blast off from the second half, and the bottom half, the lander module, or the lower descent stage, rather, would stay put. It would remain there on the moon. Okay, everybody, well, that concludes your guided tour of the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum here in lovely Washington, D.C. I appreciate all of your time today. I appreciate that you all made it through, and honestly, really give yourselves a round of applause for having survived this. Yeah, I've led some tours that were not so fortunate, so well done. I do appreciate everyone coming out to learn about aerospace and aeronautics and that sort of thing. It's something that I'm passionate about. I'm really happy. I hope that you were able to share the love of it with other people as well. If you did enjoy this tour, tips are always appreciated. I will be sure to route you my Patreon details through the Shade Network, and be sure to come visit us anytime. Thanks for watching.